And so I want to read a little bit about what music meant in those days to us. At 16, I was deep into jazz. The only teenager in Jefferson Manor to mail $12 to New York City in order to secure a bi-weekly subscription to Downbeat. I scanned every issue for news of the most romantic place possible, the world of Birdland, the Five Spot, the Blue Note, where John Coltrane and Johnny Griffin and Johnny Hodges all held court on the saxophone, while zip young men in silk suits and pink shirts donned cheap sunglasses long past sundown and clinked chilled tumblers of scotch and soda, with slinky young women wearing thick black hair slashed to the shoulders and carrying in their purses the keys to their own studio apartments. I imagined myself someday attached to one of these creatures of my imagination. Formidable listeners who could distinguish from the first utterance of the tenor sax the obsidian tone of Roland Kirk's overheated post-bop antic blues from Stan Getz' breathy West Coast cool, who had 20 reasons why she preferred the cymbals technique of Tony Williams over that of Roy Haynes, or vice versa, who passed each day for the moment when she would return home to her stereo sound system and bask in the oral bubble bath of Miles at Newport, or Sonny Rollins at the Village Vanguard. In other words, I knew nothing. Still, Frankie, my friend, kept asking me about ABC, Antoinette Bettina Kriknovic, my Croatian girlfriend. Get anything yet, he demanded. I shook my head. No lip. Sure, lip. Tongue. Yeah, I admitted sometimes. ABC's darting tongue felt about the size of a large sardine, salty and warm. Move slow and steady, my brother advised Frankie. Stay just as cool as you really are. But I wasn't in the least bit cool. ABC made me spasm and twitch. ABC tangled up my thoughts and caused my throat to close, and I just stood around looking deaf and dumb. But I couldn't keep my mind off ABC. You keep every detail to yourself, said Frankie, you selfish bastard. In fact, I did have a secret that I was holding back from Frankie, and that was unusual for us at this point in our lives. Frankie and I swapped secrets and discoveries like we were brothers, which as members of the Lost Souls, our band, we certainly were. He'd tell me about a band he'd heard on Saturday night in Oakland with the assistance of his fake ID, and how their tenor player had blown off the high harmonics with a sonic squeal in the style of King Curtis in the 45 version of Soul Serenade. And then maybe later that week, I'd coax him over to my house after school to study the new album by Charles Mingus. I'd recently got my hands on Mingus's The Black Saint and the Sinner Lady. The liner notes, written by the composer and a psychologist, suggested that Mingus regarded the album as a kind of love song. I was intrigued by the possibility that the sound of love might reside in the snort and gargle of the baritone sax, and the trumpets bleating like duck calls, and the trombones churning slightly above the low end of their register. But Frankie said it wasn't love we were listening to at all. What we were listening to was the sound of sex. We flipped the album over to one side and listened to the entire thing once again. There was something going on, I could hear it, something at the bottom of the music. Frankie swung the needle back to the initial groove, and we prepared for a third playing. I imagined what it might feel like to be listening to Mingus in the company of a girl who also loved the music and perhaps was somewhat sweet on me too. But even then, I was able to admit to myself that this girl was not ABC. ABC preferred the Monkees. Herman's Hermits. Pop music lightly spun with the consistency and nutritional value of pink cotton candy. I once persuaded ABC to sit through all 13 minutes and 41 seconds of John Coltrane's My Favorite Things. She called it noise. What about ecstasy? What about passion and craving and heartbreak? Coltrane and Mingus and Rashawn Roland Kirk and Stan Getz too. They were all about everything I didn't know how to say to her or myself. Nevertheless, I did have a secret. I wasn't telling Frankie. Not Frankie or anybody. So this is my secret. I had seen ABC naked. We were pretending to study in her bedroom. The door propped open as her Croatian mother required. The AM radio squeaking KEWB's Top 40 amid a storm of static. And then ABC rose from her desk and turned the radio up loud enough to cover any peep of excitement that might escape from my lips. She asked, "Want to see something?" Before I could stammer or speak, ABC nudged her bedroom door shut with one knee, and then, with a suppleness and speed born of instinct rather than experience, she unfolded herself out of her everyday rumple of gray sweatshirt and blue jeans, removing, as if in a single gesture, the hide of ordinary existence to display for an instant her beautiful naked white body. How long did I get to stare at her? Couldn't have lasted 5 seconds. We both heard their feet on the stairs. ABC's older sister, Belinda, groaning her name. "Get out," hissed the naked girl, pushing and tumbling me back into the hallway as Belinda rounded the corner. "She's dressing," I explained with a gasp, fighting to catch my breath, staring down at my feet. Belinda looked at me with pity, with the demeaning acuity of an older woman who knew that I would never get past that hollow pine door and gaze upon her sister's beauty. But I had. I had seen ABC inexpressibly gorgeous. It was a distinction of the highest order, the revelation of a lifetime. But this is what really slays me. As ABC hurriedly undressed, the AM radio was blasting Tijuana Taxi by Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. A tune like flypaper. Far worse than cotton candy. One of the most moronic melodies ever conceived. Instantaneously, the song was branded into my mind, seared into my limbic system. Tijuana Taxi, to be forever associated with my first vision of a beautiful naked young woman. A travesty, irreparable and unmusical.